Have you ever noticed that some people almost never explain themselves? They make a decision, they say something, or they choose a direction in life, and when others question it, they simply move on without feeling the need to justify it. To many people, this behavior can seem strange. It can look like arrogance, indifference, or even secrecy. But psychology suggests that something very different is often happening beneath the surface. Most people feel a strong urge to explain their choices. If someone questions their actions, their brain immediately begins building an explanation: why they did it, what they meant, what their intentions were. This reaction is closely connected to something psychologists call external validation. When a person depends heavily on the approval of others, their brain constantly searches for signals that confirm they are making the right decisions. And when those signals are missing, the mind tries to restore balance by explaining and defending its choices. But people who rarely explain themselves often operate in a completely different way. Instead of relying on constant feedback from others, their decisions tend to come from an internal reference system. They already know why they made a certain choice. So when someone questions it, their brain doesn't automatically switch into defense mode. In psychology, this is often related to something called self-concept clarity. Self-concept clarity refers to how clearly a person understands their own values, priorities, and identity. People with high self-concept clarity usually experience less pressure to constantly justify themselves. They already have a stable understanding of who they are and why they make certain decisions. And because of that internal clarity, they often appear unusually calm in situations where others feel the need to defend every detail. Another important factor is cognitive energy. Explaining yourself repeatedly requires mental effort. You have to organize your thoughts, anticipate objections, and adjust your explanation depending on who you're speaking to. Over time, some people begin to realize how much mental energy this process consumes, so they start conserving that energy. Instead of explaining every decision, they simply allow their actions to speak for themselves. This doesn't mean they refuse to communicate. It simply means they become selective about when explanations are actually necessary. Interestingly, social psychology also shows that people who appear less defensive are often perceived as more confident. When someone reacts to every question with long explanations, it can sometimes signal uncertainty. But when a person calmly stands by their choices without over-explaining, others often interpret that as quiet confidence. Of course, this doesn't mean silence is always the best response. Healthy communication is still essential in relationships, work, and collaboration. But the difference lies in intention. People who rarely feel the need to explain themselves are usually not trying to prove anything. They simply trust their own reasoning enough that they don't feel pressured to constantly defend it. And that quiet certainty can sometimes be one of the strongest signals of psychological stability. If you've ever met someone who seems completely comfortable making decisions without explaining every detail, you may be seeing this pattern in action. In many cases, it isn't arrogance. It's simply a person who has already done the thinking internally. And once someone reaches that level of internal clarity, they often realize that not every decision needs a public explanation.